Hi everyone. Here we're going to go over how to manipulate RStudio in various different ways, and there will be multiple segments. And first, we're going to begin by understanding the main components, the main areas of the RStudio interface. And I have the RStudio program or application open over here. And remember, you have to download and install RStudio first, and also R. Download and install R, and then RStudio. Once you open the program, you will see on the top right various areas here. This is the environment where we're going to see our variables and information about them. There's history of the commands that are run. Other areas here we might not get to. On the bottom right, we have area for you to go through your files. You can also go through plots here, where when you run, when you create a plot, it will be shown over here. And there's other list of packages and a bunch of other things. On the left is the console or the workspace, and all the code will run here, and be an error messages will come up here. And you can actually run your code directly here and run the functions. You just write the commands, and if they are legitimate commands, and you hit enter, it will run, and then back to the cursor line where you type the commands, and this is the result. So here's the result, the output of what you typed, and then the blinking cursor over the arrow in front of the arrow is the where you enter the command. Not every command will have a output, but some will. And also error messages will show up here. So you could write your R code here, but what I suggest is you go to File, New File, or open the existing file and go to this source file area over here that will be up here. Notice that this is an untitled one, and what it's always good to do is go to File and Save As. Even before you start writing, I'm going to save it on the R directory that I'm working with. I have an R directory here. And I'm going to call this R Lab Tutorials. You can use space on the file name, and the file extension is going to be .r. You save that, you see the name here, it's saved. And let's get to writing the code then. So I'm going to write a comment about the file. It's good. So to write a comment, you put the hashtag first in the first line and write anything you want. Doesn't have to be R code. And the computer will not process, because this is for human interpretation. You go to the next line and you start, this is a comment. Notice that you have to put the hashtag in front of every line that is actually a comment. Otherwise, the program will think it's computer code. Of course, this is just for an example. We don't need that. So here I want to put a lot of comments, or just at least some basic comments, some comments, so we know what the program is doing. It's much better when you comment your code up front in the beginning, so you can understand your code, then have to go back and comment later, or worse, have to go back and not understand what's going on. Even though you can read the code itself and understand the function, it's much better when you actually turn it into a more human language explanation. So here I'm going to write one function that I already explained, or already used it as example, and here I'm going to run it again in the from the source file. So what I do is I actually like to select the area of the source file that I want to run. This will be important when there's more. For now, it doesn't really matter. But once we select, and then the area that we want to run, and hit run over here, then it runs on the bottom console. So it's the same thing that we did before. And this is a get working directory function. It tells you where the working directory is. It's important to know where the working directory is, because we're going to make references to files and data sets. So we need to know what the program is expecting in terms of the address of the files. So I already have a good working directory for me, because what I want to do is I'm going to want to load my main data set. Usually you're going to have to load a data set to work with. And we're going to use this read.csv function. There's already an internal function of the R program, that we're going to use to load the data into a variable. So this is an assignment operation, this equal sign over here. And often you also see this symbol in R. I just like to use R equal because it works, and it's also more similar to other computer programs. Usually it would work if you don't have a space here, because what the program will do is identify all the letters and letters followed by, or letters and numbers, alphanumeric characters on the left side of an equal sign. And then once it sees an equal sign, it's going to know that this is a command. So this is part of the language. So you cannot have an equal sign as part of a name. It's just not going to work. And you don't really need an equal sign as part of a name of a variable. So COPD is the name of a variable that I made up. I could call it anything, just C or CO, not anything, because it cannot be a reserved word for the computer program like int or in. So it has to be something that is not reserved for the computer program. So COPD is not reserved, and it's just a name I'm giving to the variable where the data set is going to be loaded. R.cv is an existing function, so we need to know what the existing functions are, and here I'm telling you this is one of them. And we're going to put the directory and the file name that we're going to load. So you should have already a data set, could be this, or could be a different one. And then my data is located under the r_dir or R directory that is under document. So it works because I know that my working directory is here with my username and document, and then /r_dir/COPD student dataset. So if my dataset was under documents, I would remove this, but since it's not, I will read it like that. So if I run this, and if you need to change your working directory, you can do it different ways. You can do it via command line, or you can also use some of the tools here. So if you go to, let's see, session, set working directory, and you can go to choose the directory specifically. So I could even just change my directory. Let's see, let's actually do that. Choose directory. I'm going to go look for my R directory. I'm going to open it. Now here the command set working directory. Notice that this command, there's no output. It's just a command, and I run, and it looks like it worked because there was no error message. So it looks like it's set, and now then when I read my file, I need to remove this over here, otherwise it's not going to find it. So because my file, my working directory, it's already r_dir, so in my file is under that folder. So I'm just going to run this here, and it looks like it worked. I know it worked also because I can see the environment now. It appears this new variable, and it actually tells me I have 101 observations of 24 variables. If you click here, it also opens up the data frame itself. The data set's usually a table of rows of records and columns of variables. And you can examine it this way, and it's really good to do so. So you kind of have an understanding of what the data is, what kind of values are going on with this data. Of course, usually you want the detailed explanation of what the data set is, and often hopefully you have it, but sometimes you don't have it, but usually you can't do much without it. And here I'm going to give you some information. I'm pasting some information here about the COPD data set, and we can refer to it if we need it. So this is a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease patient in the hospital. So every record is a patient. Every record is a different patient, and they have all these variables, like they have an age, and they have a pack history of smoking, and they have level of COPD severity. So COPD is a lung disease or a lung problem. There are other measures here that I summarize some of them, the explanation about them here. So, but now we have loaded the data set into our data frame, and we can do a few things. So for example, if we want to, so we already saw the data frame here when we open the file here, but we can also see it on the code by this command, the command head, and the head prints the first 5 rows. And it's usually kind of, there's a word wrap here, so it's not sometimes reader friendly. So it's even better to just look at the table, but that's a way to do it. A few other useful commands. So for example, if you want to just see a particular row, if you have a very long data set and you want to see the or 100th row or whatever. Well, this is the command that you need to run. Now do here just, for example, the 4th row. This, and you see just the row, all the information of that particular individual, in this case, a record. And of course, if you want to see the 95 row, you just change like this. I'm going to put 4 back to 4 just so the comment matches that. If you want to see the 5th column, you go like this. So if you see this structure here of the code is square bracket, row, and then comma, column. So the 5th column is this, and you see the whole 5th column. And of course, if you want the 4th column and 5th row, as you can imagine, it's this. And it just gives you one cell, one value. There's another, if you want to see the total of the rows and columns, you can use the dim command. Just see, I'm just selecting here, just if you run, it's going to run everything. So I don't want to run everything again. I just want to run this part. So I just select it and then run. And dim is for dimension. So this gives you the summary. It's what it says here also in the environment. So if you don't have this, and sometimes you're just working like this, you can use this comment as well. If you want to make reference to the columns by the name of the column, you can also show all rows but one specific column via its name. You see here in this format over here. So, well, this is just the first row of this column. So this is not all the rows. All the rows would be this, which is the same as actually doing this here with this money sign. You can refer to the data set and the particular column. And the output, it's kind of hard to tell because it's the same, but the output here. To see, maybe you want to see the first 5 rows or the first 10 rows, this is the structure here. And you can kind of try to get a sense of it because it's similar. It always follows a logic kind of repetitive structure. This is 1 through 5 rows, so you don't have to just identify the 1 or 3rd or 4th. You can do 1 through 5, and of course, if you want 1 through 10, you just change over here, and you run that. And you see the first 10 rows of all the variables. If you want to put a particular variable, you need to put it here. And notice that we need the quotes because it's kind of a separate word value. Usually, we need quotes. There's this over here. Just for pack history, the first 10. So that is it for the loading and inspecting the data frame and introduction to our studio. Next, we'll go into descriptive statistical analysis.